afternoon, Ross and Jonathan. How are you guys doing today?
Good. So nice to meet you.
So nice to
Great.
meet you both
Thanks
as
for having
well.
us on, man.
No, thank you guys for giving us the time to talk about all of your projects and as well about Torfoot Entertainment Group. And just starting off the bat, what inspired both of you to make or to create Torfoot Entertainment Group?
JB, I'll let you start.
Cool. Yeah. And people ask us, what's the word Torfoot? My some of my family comes from Scotland and south of Glasgow, and there's a family farm that's been there since about the mid 15th century called Torfoot, which means base of the hill or bottom of the hill, which is kind of like the sturdy foundation, Torfoot. A few years back, I incorporated a company called Torfoot Films. But recently, when Ross and I have joined forces here, we've also, rebranded, sort of reimagined what we want Torfoot to be. And so that's why we came up with Torfoot Entertainment Group.
And I decided to go with the name because JB had hats and t-shirts already made. So I was,
There were swags and and we
yeah,
have
I was like,
fans.
I don't want to reprint. And
And can you tell me the chemistry behind how you two work together, how all of these projects came to fruition? How is that dynamic between both of you?
yeah, I mean, when JB and I were lucky enough to be introduced, my background is in addition to producing, I produced theater and I produced film, throughout the years, but I have spent the last 20 or so years as a casting director. And I met a lot of actors and knew an actor who had moved to Dallas, and he and I have been talking about working together and introduced me to JB. And JB and I met, of course, on Zoom and just started talking about projects that we were both working on, and they, it was kind of like that thing where you like how, it was like, how many foods can you both like? The similar foods can you both like? And we just started talking about subject matters and things that interested us, and we clicked, and that's when we decided to join forces. And we both bring different we bring a lot of the same producerial skill sets, but JB writes, and I work with talent. I've worked with talent, and we have different things, and I think it's made a great combination.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you want to have some crossover in your skill base and have similar experiences. But yeah, when Ross and I start to think about building our teams, want to make sure that we bring, people to the table who have incredible skill sets, that, and also specialties of stuff that we don't have. That's, what's really important to the chemistry of Torfoot.
Okay.
Is it really? I watch videos on independent filmmaking all the time, and the funny thing is like there's podcasts and things where people like talk about people below the line and like grips and gaffers and what does this mean? But like one of the things that people don't know what it means is producing. And people are like, so what do you do? So you don't write the script and you don't direct it and you don't act in it. So what is that you do? And that's, it's so funny that when people ask me what I do, it's hard to explain in 3 sentences.
No, yeah, I can imagine. I've spoken with producers and when they tell me what goes into it, I can imagine that it's not easy, and wanted to ask you both as well. Working together, you mentioned that it's working together is great. Has there been any type of challenges
Yeah.
on any of your past productions? The reason why I ask is because I would like people to know that when you do independent work, it's not always easy. But I want you guys to share your experiences working together on all of these past projects.
Yeah, I mean, it's never easy, right? That's why yeah, I don't think I've ever been in a project that's been easy. I don't know about you, Ross. So I would love to have one of those.
I
Can we
don't
have,
I don't think there's anybody in the industry that doesn't wake up every morning and go, what was I thinking?
what? I could have been an attorney or a doctor. What am I doing here? What's going on, right? Uh, No, it's a very, very difficult, industry. But you really have to love it, right? And I think that's one of the things that every morning, we have a standing meeting every morning and at TEG with our team, and connecting and going every morning. You got to be passionate about what you're working on, otherwise you're just never going to get it done. Um,
Yeah, you know
especially,
what, John? That question gets asked a lot, and the truth of the matter is, I mean, it's like buying a house. You could buy seven houses, and on the seventh house, you're still gonna not check on one thing. And when you buy that house, you look at the windows and the pipes, and you're like, oh, I think I have and then you move in, and you're like, oh, I didn't see this floorboard pops up, and that's what producing is. It's like, like JB saying, we meet every morning, and we try to go over every detail, and then there's just things that come up, cast dropping out and backers leaving and or on but then when you go into production, you're on a roller coaster, and weather and just so many things that you can't plan for. And so, we could sit down with you for hours and go through, case in points of things like that have happened, but it's numerous.
Now, one of the things that you guys are 100%, I imagine that you're working on it, because we have presented concept art and a concept or first look video of the Jetty.
the
That is
Yeti.
the Yeti is your upcoming project. Where does this concept come in? Because in a note, the Jetty is shown in different ways. A lot of people show it as a big monster. Some show it as a small creature. In this case, you guys, in the first look, there is, I would say they gave me a lot of like the classic horror film, The Thing, that has that aspect of how the horror will be. But where does this concept and idea come from? And what inspired you guys to be like, yeah, we want to make a Yeti horror film?
Yeah, well, Gene Gallerano and I, who's one of the co-writers, co-directors of the Yeti, Gene and Will, wrote and will direct the film. Gene and I made a film a few years ago called Occupy Texas, and we'd been looking for something, to do together. And Ross and I, are always looking at what's happening in the marketplace because that's a big part of how you're successful. And we knew that genre films were doing quite well, but there really wasn't a great creature feature out there in the same kind of milieu, if you will, as the old Universal horror pictures like the Frankenstein and Mummy and Invisible Man. And so we wanted to make, a classic looking horror picture. And the Yeti is one of the creatures that hasn't really, there's not a definitive film on the Yeti. And so that was very attractive to us. It takes place in 1947, so it's post World War II, so it's already in a very interesting time period. And we're making it, almost 100% of the film is being shot in a studio, so it'll have that kind of big film epic look on an indie budget. And so that's part of what I think attracted me to this and Ross, that we thought, A, we could make a really cool looking film, an exciting film, bring a lot of our network to play. We have some of the most amazing creature guys on the planet that are building the Yeti for us, guys that have worked on Jurassic World and Ghostbusters and Stranger Things and Predator. And then we've got great stunt teams that are part of our world. So, we have all the elements there to make a really great classic horror film.
Okay. And will you be investing in the I had the word right there in my mind and it went away. But I want to use that an example. Right now, the film Terrifiers 3 is making huge stepping stones for the
Yeah.
horror genre and slasher film genre. Will you guys invest in using practical effects in this film, or will you be going to what is mostly used now, that is digital effects, being that a lot of producers and creators say it's a little bit much more cost effective than practical effects? Which route are you guys going to be going to for the Yeti?
That's a great question because it was the first question I asked JB when we started. Um, uh, um, it's actually not that as cost effective as you would think. I mean, there's a lot of money that goes like it. People just think it's like, oh, you just get an app and But JB, I'll let you talk more about like about the aesthetic to using the practical over the CGI.
Yeah, yeah. So, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I made a film called Puppet Master, and that was all done, practically in camera and with puppeteers, and actually many of the creature guys were using on this. And I just thought the aesthetic of that was A, more interesting to me as a filmmaker, um, but B, I think it leans more into that old world, horror, aesthetic. And so really we're trying to do 90% of this in camera. You always augment with visual effects. We'll have set extensions and, obviously in some of the stunts there will be wire removals and, some atmospheric stuff, but 90% of this is going to be done practically in camera. Um, and so that's part of the fun of this.
Okay. And Ross, I wanted to know your inspiration behind the project. What caught your attention to be part of the Yeti?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Um, you know, as I've gotten older, I'm less apt to want to put myself in a situation of going to a theater and having, the bejesus these, scared out of me. But when JB presented me with the script, the first thing that I thought of was my childhood. On Saturdays, there was a show called Creature Feature, and it was all those classic movies. And I realized and JB had said this to me recently that there's a lot of subgenres of horror. It's not all slasher films. And so when I had this opportunity to work, to look at the script that was about this creature and also the it kind of interesting to work on something where there's actually a relationship between the live action, the actors and the creature. And it's not just about killing and, it's about why, there's a why here as to like why they're going out into the wilderness to find this creature and you know and the you know and so being part of a horror genre that had a little depth to it, in a way that I remember as a child where you fell in love with these creatures. Hence Mel Brooks made Young Frankenstein because he took that 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 creature and he made him into a real human that was kind of like had imperfection and yet the concept of relating to a creature is so interesting to me.
That's amazing. And this would be my final question for both of you. I know that you guys are still working on the Yeti and everything, but just to like get a head start to for everybody to get into the project and pay attention when it comes out. If you guys could describe at least the script that is what's available right now, your eyes only. But if you could describe the story in one word, what would it be?
Wow. In one word,
Yes.
um, adventure.
I was going to say suspenseful.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Ooh, I like that. I like both of them. Thank you very much, Ross and Jonathan, to talk about Torfoot Entertainment Group and your upcoming project, the Yeti. And so crazy to see how it looks like. And thank you very much for your time.
No, it's
Yeah,
our
John,
pleasure.
thank
And
you, man.
make sure you check out torfoot.com and follow us on Instagram at Torfoot Entertainment Group.
Sure thing. I'll have them. All of that information will be down below,
Great.
guys. Thank you
Awesome.
very
Thanks, guys.
much.
You
Bye
bet.
bye.